Right, so I'm going to do a review of this. Yeah, it's a Hotpoint 9530. It is, for the most part, the most common model sold by Hotpoint in 1987. So there are 3 colour variants. There is almond and brown, there's white and brown, and polar white, which is white and white, of course. Although the white on the polar white is slightly different as well, which makes it interesting. However, getting a hold of polar white's one is near impossible. They do exist, but near impossible, and mostly that if you do get hold of one, it'll be more yellow than white. That's for sure. Anyway, let me say this, it's going to upset a lot of people, is that we all love these machines, but out the most part, these were probably the worst made machines on the market at the time. And to be honest, in comparison to a lot of other brands, even in today's standards, modern Hotpoints could outlast these. And that's saying something. Yeah, as much as I actually do love these, the fantastic machines in a very weird way of making us smile, but in actual everything, which I'm going to go through in a minute, they were pretty much terribly rubbish. Even the cheaper machines, like, to say, were still cheap at the time, and I'm pretty sure like Zanussi were as well. Zanussi was just starting to become more expensive, but even so, Zanussi was severely way more better built than these Hotpoints ever were. Right, I'm going to show you why these are terrible. Let's start off with these side trims. Now, for some reason, Hotpoint are the only brand to ever have side trims. They go along here and along here, except they break. Yeah, so if the machine is against something completely flush, when it's on spin, they will break because of the vibration. If it moves during spin, which it does a lot, it will break. Yeah, there's no getting away around this. These will break. Even the fascia, after a while. Now this is a pretty solid, sturdy version, but most other versions, so by the time it gets to like 30-year-old, these become very brittle and tend to break. But luckily with this, it's not too bad. So I've seen it before where it's also broken here inside, but it's not. This fascia is pretty much perfect on this, which is its saving grace. And actually, in comparison to damage, there are better examples of these around, but this is a pretty good example I've seen in a long time. So, anything else that's rubbish? Yeah, these door handles. Now, this has got a chip in, and to be honest, any 95 or 99 series washer dryer, or even the 93 tumble dryers, would often get a chip here in the door handle or down here. But I've also seen it where the actual handle and all this breaks out, because I've got one myself, where the handle's just completely gone. Now, luckily, all these can be kind of replaced, bit by bit. The actual trim never seems to break as such, so that's its saving grace. However, yet again, there is yet more problems with its build quality. Yeah, these tend to break as well. It's not a first, and it's certainly not a last. Cool. What about inside then, the drum? So, actually, the drum's pretty good. It's quite big, even though it's only a 4.1 kilogram capacity. The door opening is quite wide, so it makes loading and unloading quite much easier. The door seals, even on there, I don't think this is original. I think this is a replacement. But the door seals are pretty good, generally. And generally quite hard wearing. The only tiny little things that can happen is that rot can happen to the drum itself. Very, 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 very rare, but I have seen it happen. And this drum doesn't have any whatsoever. Oh no. Yeah, let me just go back to the brittleness. My knee touched that and it broke. Ugh. My knee touched that and it broke. We're having an instant replay of the sound. Doesn't have any whatsoever. Oh no. Doesn't have any whatsoever. Oh no. Doesn't have any whatsoever. Oh no. The drawer at the top, so this is quite stiff to get out. And on this particular machine, the screw that holds the front plate in is missing. But we've got 3 others. Oh, the screw on the other side's actually falling out, so clearly it's kind of a design flaw in a way. Right, inside the drawer, while we're here, we've got a massive main wash compartment that can probably take a good 500 millilitres of powder. Pre-wash can probably take a good 150, and the fabric softener can take 100 mils of liquid. No exact figure, because we don't really have them in the instruction manual. So, a couple of other things. So, this machine has a plastic outer tub, which sounds daft, but it makes kind of sense because it makes it a lot lighter. But then it has to be because you can move it around. The whole point of this machine is so you can roll it round, and it has 4 rollers. 2 at the back, 2 at the front. Not all models did. The lower end models tend to come with only 2 rollers at the back and 2 feet at the front, which is a lot better than having 4 rollers, because the trouble is, when you're on a... There is literally like, trying to push this round is a nightmare, because every time you put any pressure on anything, it just feels like it's just going to crack into a million bits. And it just really, really... Yeah! Like, don't touch it! Don't touch the Hotpoint! Like, it pains me to say this, but Indesit make better Hotpoints than they did in the old days. Yes, I love them. Yes, they make a great noise with its GEC motor. The GEC motors, though, were also terribly rubbish. Yeah, unfortunately, it's one of them. So the GEC motor couldn't hold top speeds because they would overheat, and they go through brushes very quickly, unlike other manufacturers' motors. But they did make a really nice sound, and for some reason they aren't as loud as they kind of made out to be. They're not actually that loud, to be honest. Like, I think like Hoover tend to be a little louder, and Zanussi tend to be a little louder than the GC motor ones. Right, so we'll take a look at the programs at the top then. So we are marked out with the ICTL code system. So program 7 is the wool cycle. Now this is a separate wool cycle, which is a bit more ahead of its time, to be honest, because most of them usually had wool on the cotton side of the dial or the synthetic side of the dial with a special wool button somewhere. Not so with this. It has its own wool cycle, which is about 40 minutes long, and you can wash 3 pounds of wool, which is about 1.4 kilo, or you can wash a blanket if you want. You can even select fabric softener and spin of wool. Oddly enough, it has a long spin. Suppose it has a fast spin. No, it's a long spin. This one is pre-wash. So it does a pre-wash followed by. Well, this is where it gets confusing. So it says rinse hold. There's no way of saying that. It says rinse hold. But what it does is that it drains and then stops. That's what's confusing about it. And if you select rinse hold or don't select rinse hold, it doesn't do anything. Really, that should just be a little stop marker, really. Anyway, then obviously program 1 is white cotton at 85 degrees. This is the ICTL code for the 95 degree cotton cycle. But Hotpoint being honest here in a way and saying it's 85 degrees it will get to, which is nice and very honest. And 85 degrees is actually enough to kill all viruses and bacteria with heat, so long as it holds at that temperature, which it does actually. And even with cold water, it'll take about an hour and 3/4. Program 2 is Colour Fast Cotton at 60 degrees. It also takes about 65 minutes, which isn't bad with cold water only. If you use hot water, you're probably just under an hour, which isn't that bad. Program 5 is non-colour fast cotton 40 degrees, which is about 55 minutes long. Then we have 4 rinses. Oddly enough, it kind of goes solid there, so you can select rinses. And then it stops at fabric softener, which is the 4th rinse. And then you can have fast spin only cycle at 1000 RPM. Then we've got off, which goes solid for some reason. Then we've got program 3, which is white nylon at 60 degrees. Then we've got coloured synthetics at 50 degrees. Then we've got acrylics and wool mixtures at 40 degrees. Then we've got some rinses. We've got 3 rinses, I think, including the final fabric softener rinse. And if you select rinse hold, that's the rinse hold marker, which will stop there. And this light for the rinse hold will light up when it's in rinse hold mode when rinse hold has been selected. I'll get into the options in a minute. Then you have short spin, not slow spin. The only difference, is how long it will go up to 1000 RPM, or try to anyway. You might not get to 1000 RPM, but it will get close as. So it does a 1000 RPM spin burst for around 20 seconds. All by stop. Anyway, let's go on to the options then. So we've got half load, which will allow you to wash about 4 pounds of washing instead of 9 pounds of washing. So that's 1.8 kilos instead of 4.1 kilo on programs 1, 2 and 5. And you can wash you can wash 4 pounds of washing with a full load on these next 3 programs, or with a half load you can wash 2 pounds, which is 0.9 kilo. Slow spin then. Slow spin will limit the final spin to 500 RPM. And it will do this on all of the spin cycles, since all spin cycles will go to 1000 RPM. So you can select this with any cycle. Then we got economy wash. Now what economy wash does is it will do a very short, it will take in hot and cold as normal, as you would normally do, and then heat for those short time periods during the cycle. So what this means is that you can have a faster wash, not using as much energy by the machine, relying on the hot and cold, and it's obviously made for lightly soiled laundry. What it means though is that on the 85 degree program 1 is that it won't get to 85 degrees at all. In fact, at best you might get 60 depending on your hot water supply. But if you got 2 coals like I have right now, you're probably going to get 40 at most. Probably not even that. It will do timed heats at certain periods, so there is a chance that you'll at least get to somewhere. One little cool little trick. So if you want a quick wash, select program 6, press half load and economy wash, and you can have a quick wash, which will take about half an hour. I think I timed it. It's actually a bit less than half an hour actually. It's not bad, but obviously by pressing half load with program 6, you're only allowed to wash 0.9 kilograms or 2 pounds. Right, so there you go. So what's the difference between this then and the 9534? Well, it's all down to the icons, and they change from 3, 4, 6, etc. to the updated ICTL codes, which then says 60 and 40 and 50, etc. with little dash marks if it was for synthetics or woolens or whatever. So that's the only difference. If you had a 9520, it means you had an 800 spin version of this machine. Right, so let's put these towels in then. So we're going to select program 2 and push in half load. We're going to pour some Tesco stuff in. Then we're going to pull the dial out to start. And we get a little green mark light there to say that it's on, switched on. So, just to note, the water level this time around on half load is actually lower. Now, other times it's been up to here even with half load, which is the normal wash level. Another thing, it stopped for the time being. But if you listen closely, you can hear the heater on. So it has thermostatic stop if the temperature of the water is below 35 degrees. Once it hits 35, the timer will re-engage again, continue washing and heating at the same time. Right, so to give this out of 10 then, now we're all done, it gets 4. 4 out of 10, you heard me right there. So, trouble is the short wash times mean quite poorish results actually. Spin, in comparison to other machines at this, even at 1000 RPM, is pretty poor. Rinsing is really good, but that's because it only does 4 rinses. With intermediate spins, which is quite advanced, and intermediate spins on the white nylon side, which is pretty advanced, also for its day. So there's some advanced things. The wool cycle I find is really good because it does intermediate spins as well as a really fast final spin. But it's let down in multiple other ways. First is the shaking and it walking out. Second is the fact it shakes and then smashes its trims. Yeah, there's a lot wrong with it in that sense. Do I love it? Yeah. Was it a bad purchase at the time? Yeah. Those who had one bought it because of the brand name, Hotpoint, and it was actually obviously British made, unlike the others. But it was pretty poor in comparison to a lot of other brands. Personally, like Philips and Indesit and Zanussi were all miles better and ahead. Even Hoover, another British make. You know, Hoover square doors were exceedingly better in comparison to this, which is a bit of a shame, really. All these years and we've been led to believe that this is brilliant. It's not. It's never brilliant. In fact, it was never reliable either. Went through brushes, went through bearings, spiders snap on these quite easily. Heaters would often blow, but that was more from line scale build up than anything. Timers would often go, and if you had the ones with the door release instead, the peckers would always break because the tub would always smash against the side and break the pecker. There was nothing really that good about them, other than everybody bought one.